It's time to sit down and relax for the good, the bad, and the sequel Q&A with your host, Doug.
Hey there, so if you could take a moment after listening to this amazing interview to review and rate us wherever you listen to this podcast, that'd be so awesome. So last week, we reviewed Roadhouse 2, the Roadhouse-ier sequel. And on Monday, I hope you had the chance to listen to our interview with former WWF champion Psycho Sid. That guy was pretty badass. So, next week, we're going to be discussing the third installment in the misadventures of Daniel LaRusso, as I like to call it. Of course, I'm talking about Karate Kid Part 3. So that means that we had to interview someone involved in the film, behind or in front of the camera. And we got the Cobra Kai badass, Mike Barnes, who was played by Sean Kanan. Sean talks about auditioning for the role, a low-budget horror film that he started his career off in, transitioning to daytime soaps, where he was a star and still is a star. And of course, he writes books too. A cookbook and an inspirational book he just put out that he co-wrote with Jill Lieberman, and it's called Success Factor X. Inspiration, wisdom, and advice from 50 of America's best. The link's in the notes. He does it all, and he has some amazing people that he got involved with that book. And I know you're going to love this interview. Enjoy. Awesome, man. Well, thanks so much for taking the time.
No, it's my pleasure. I'm glad you were able to work this out with me yesterday.
Oh, don't worry about it, man. You don't have to apologize. Yeah, you're a busy guy, I'm sure, so don't worry about it.
Well, I'm all yours right now, so
awesome, man.
Let's do it, man. All right.
Cool. So where does your story begin? Like, where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Western Pennsylvania, about
nice.
40 minutes outside Pittsburgh. Yeah.
So you a Steeler fan?
I'm a Steeler fan. I mean, I'm not like a maniac or anything, but I certainly like them. I mean, it's definitely football country, that's for sure.
Oh, totally. Yeah, I've been out there. It's beautiful.
Yeah, it is. It's beautiful. It's green. I'm actually going back to Pennsylvania Friday. Actually, Friday night. I'm going to be in DC, and then I go to Pennsylvania to go do. I have 4 book signings at Barnes and Nobles in the Pittsburgh area for my book. So that's going to be cool. Yeah. When I was a junior in high school, I went away to boarding school, which was also in Pennsylvania. So I did 2 years public school, 2 years private school, and then I started studying political science at Boston University, and then decided if I was going to pursue my acting career, I needed to be in Los Angeles or New York, and figured it was better to be poor but warm. So I moved out to Los Angeles.
What got you into acting? Like when did you have an interest in that?
About the time I was 13, like I think a lot of people, I knew I wanted to do something and express myself, and I kind of didn't know what it was. I was really interested in stand-up comedy. I hadn't really done a whole lot of acting. I'd done a couple plays here and there. I wasn't like a theater kid or anything like that, although I did do a couple plays in school, now that I think about it. And as I got a little older, like around 15 and a half, 16, I went to an open call for a modeling agency in Pittsburgh, and I actually went accompanying a friend of mine, but they chose me, which was, kind of an interesting, weird story in itself.
Yeah.
And in the course of doing, and this was like catalog modeling. This isn't like high fashion modeling in Milan. You know what I mean? This was like J.C. Penney and stuff like that. Imagine like, I also worked at McDonald's when I was a kid. So it was a hell of a lot better getting paid, $100 an hour to do this than, minimum wage.
Oh, definitely.
And eventually I got offered a commercial. And the commercial allowed me to enter the Screen Actors Guild. And I didn't really know how important that was at the time. But, when I came out to Los Angeles to pursue acting, and I was going to school at UCLA, I wound up getting my political science degree from UCLA. I already had my SAG card, which was a huge advantage, because now you can get into the Screen Actors Guild by doing hours and hours of extra work. But when I got in the Screen Actors Guild, you couldn't do that. You literally had to have somebody that was a Screen Actors Guild signatory be willing to pay like extra money to bring you into, to make you eligible for the union. So, I mean, it was really difficult to get into the union, and I had accomplished it way back when, like 5 or 6 years before, and it was just an enormous advantage. And then I came out to Los Angeles and started knocking on doors, and I got little TV parts here and there, and then eventually got Karate Kid 3 through an open call, and then things really started to pick up after that.
Sweet. Yeah, so that first TV series, that was Werewolf, right?
Yeah, that was Werewolf, yeah.
That's awesome. What was that like?
Well, what's funny about that was the star of that show was John J. York, who I would later become friendly with, and who played Max Scorpio on General. So, small world. I wound up working on General Hospital for probably like 7 years, and John, who I would later do scenes with and everything, was the guy who I did my very first television gig with.
Oh, wow.
It was really fun. It was really fun because the character I played was kind of patterned after Keanu Reeves in The Lost Boys. And so it was just kind of like really fun playing like a really naughty baddie,
Yeah.
Playing like So it was a lot of fun. I mean, you're dealing with a werewolf. I mean, it's like we're in a haunted house. I mean, what's not to love? And again, crazy thing. The guy that was the other co-star in that episode turned out to be like best friends with Billy Zabka. So Billy came to this, and of course I was like, oh my God, it's Johnny Lawrence. Got to know Billy a little bit. And of course, years later, Billy and I are, proud members of the Cobra Kai.
Yeah. So then just before you do that, I can't wait to hear about the open casting call for Karate Kid 3, but so you're in a little horror movie, Hide and Go Shriek.
Oh my God. Jeez, you got to bring that up, huh?
There's a lot of those campy horror movies that came out, and there's a million of those in the 80s. Boy, that was just like all the time.
That was something else.
Yeah. What was that experience like your first movie?
My manager begged me not to do it.
Oh,
he said, Sean, this is a colossal piece of shit. And it was. I actually, it was funny. The one of the producers, who I won't mention his name, but he decided he didn't want to pay the actors overtime and treat us fairly. And I said, look, I'm going to go to SAG. And years later, after I had written a film called Chasing Holden, and it was being produced by Lionsgate, I'm walking in the streets of Beverly Hills, and I saw this guy. And, I saw him in below, and he's like, well, how you doing? And, I got a film that Lionsgate's putting out there that I wrote and produced. Guess I worked again in Hollywood. And, that's why that was interesting for me, that film, because I got the cliche, you'll never work again in Hollywood kid speech. So, it was like the first thing I ever did. And, as bad as it was still a professional acting job where I was being, paid to act. So, in that respect, it was interesting. It was also kind of cool because, there were a bunch of us, we were all about the same age, and it literally was like playing hide and go seek in this big scary warehouse. And as we were filming it in this big warehouse, it was kind of scary because there'd be times that you get called and have to go up to one of the floors to go film something, and you're sort of taking the elevator up by yourself, and there's all these crazy looking mannequins that dispersed throughout the multi-level furniture warehouse because they played in, and it was a little creepy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I bet. But you said it best. You're all around the same age. I'm sure a lot of these people was their first movie. Maybe some people were. Yeah. But that must have been a lot of fun, that experience, doing something like that.
It was actually. I mean, it was. Yeah, it was. It's amazing to me that sometimes, every now and then someone will come up to me and they'll have a copy of the DVD. Whoa. And ask me to sign it or something. And I'm like, how did you even find this thing? And it's out there. So,
hey, and you're still working. I bet you a few of those people.
Which is amazing. Which is amazing after my performance in that movie. So,
that's so great. Have you ever watched that in the last few years at all?
Oh my God, I haven't. It actually probably would be really funny to do that. I don't even know. I guess I could find it on the internet.
Yeah, I'm
even
sure
really look.
it's got to be somewhere. Whoever produced that is probably put it wherever it can.
Yeah.
That'd be a fun night.
I think it'd be funny to do that. Yeah.
It's Friday the 13th this Friday.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Who knows? Maybe if I do, but I'm sure at some point I'll watch it again.
Yeah, no, that'd be cool. Especially full circle, almost 30 years ago, and you've done so much since then. So let's dive into Karate Kid Part 3. So I read a little bit online. I'm sure your story's a lot better than that. But there was like a big casting call for your part as Mike Barnes.
Yes. Yeah, I went out to the entire, New York, Los Angeles. And what's interesting is I've been studying karate since I was 13.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah. My teacher's teacher was a gentleman, Shihan, which means Master Fumio Demura. And Sensei Demura was Pat Morita's stunt double. And so he knew I wanted to be an actor. And he said, look, Sean, they're gonna do this open call for this bad guy. You should definitely, figure out how to do that. And so I showed up and, it was unbelievable. I mean, there were people wrapped all the way around the studio, 5 deep. There I was. I had shown up at the casting director's office the day before. Her name was Caro Jones, and I said, "Look, I've got my SAG card. I'm a real actor." And it was like, "Can I audition?" And she's like, "No, you got to go. You got to go wait in this open call." And I think in retrospect, this open call really was a publicity stunt. I mean, the chances of finding a lead actor in a studio film in the second sequel in a successful franchise. You got to be nuts thinking you're going to find some guy that is going to be able to carry this role, because if that character doesn't work, the film doesn't work. Long story short, John Avildsen, who'd won the Academy Award for Rocky, directed the other Karate Kid films, walked up and down the line, and he stopped when he saw me, and we did a quick improv, and he brought me into the studio, and there was Ralph Macchio on a set, and they put me in there with him and said, intimidate him. And I guess I did. And it was just surreal. I mean, it was surreal because I had been a paying customer in the theater watching Karate Kid 2. And now here I am screen testing with Ralph Macchio. And I did not get the role. They hired someone else first.
Oh, whoa. Okay.
Crushed, because I knew I did a good job. I knew I was, one of, 10 guys there that they were seriously looking at, and pretty good chance of getting it. When they hired somebody else, I was really, really devastated, on low. And a couple days later, they fired the guy, and they called me back. And, I call, and I love the whiskey a go-go on Sunset. And I'll never forget, like, it was the most amazing feeling driving down Sunset Boulevard, making my way to the studio in Burbank, and knowing that, like, they're not calling me back to tell me, you didn't get the job. Like, I was like, there's something going on. Maybe there's another role. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was like, something good is coming out of this. And I mean, it was just an unbelievable sense of, positive, heightened anticipation. And, I got there. There was Robert Mark Kamen, who wrote the Karate Kid films. He's written Taken. He's Robert Mark Kamen.
Yeah.
And, they had me do a couple of, they put me through the paces to see me do some martial arts. And they went in a room and talked for about 30 seconds. And the next thing I knew, this is how much you're making. And, set me off to wardrobe. I mean, it was like, it happened so unbelievably quickly. I mean, I was like on the set the next day working.
Yeah, it was happened so fast. It's just probably a good thing, because you didn't have time to think about it, because you were working the next day. And because maybe if it was like, hey, we're going to shoot in 2 weeks, that you have 2 weeks of like thinking, like maybe overthinking, but it was great the way it happened in a way.
Right. Yeah, it was one of the most exciting things that's ever happened to me in my life. It's turned out to be one of the most defining things in my life. I mean, really, really spectacular.
I've talked to a bunch of different actors, and most of the time their first roles, like I talked to William Sadler, one of his earliest roles, he was like on the background on the Newhart show. I think his character name was like Man Who Fell Downstairs. But right away,
I did that too. I mean, believe me, I did some extra work before before I started to get, principal roles. So I get it. And it's so hard because, you want to get in the game, and the chances of you getting in the game as an extra are really, really infinitesimally small. So you're watching people doing what you want to do, and it's really, it's not even bittersweet. It's bitter because you're there, but you're like, come on, give me a shot. And you really, really very few people get a chance that way. I mean, there's some stories I've heard where people have sort of gotten discovered doing some extra work, but rarely.
Oh yeah. Or like Pamela Anderson, like she's at I think she was at a hockey game or like a CFL game. So a chance like you said.
Yeah, she sticks out a little more, I think.
Yeah, no, that is true.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. What are some memories that you have from set, like filming it?
Well, I mean, I don't know if you're familiar with this, and I've told this story so much, but I was just thinking about it while we were talking. I was like, oh God, I got to tell this story again about when I almost died filming.
Whoa.
But in retrospect, that story is such a seminal part of my life. We had been filming for about 2 weeks. We broke for Christmas, and I was going to go to Las Vegas and with my then girlfriend, and I was having a lot of pain in my left thigh, which I attributed to all the karate I was doing. So I started just taking tons of aspirin. Well, what had really happened was I had perforated my omentum, which is it's a sheath of tissue, I guess, that wraps around your intestine. And long story short, I was bleeding to death.
Oh my
and
God.
the aspirin was exacerbating the bleeding. So we were in Vegas about a day after we had driven out there. And the thought that we had driven through the desert, had this happened hours later, I probably would have died. Anyway, I passed out at the Dunes Hotel, and the EMTs said it was Christmas Day in 1990, and the EMTs were like, oh my God, he's lost so much blood, he's dying. They took me to Humana Sunrise Hospital, and they said, we have to operate. And I was like, what, you mean like Monday? And they said, no, like in 15 minutes. And they said, we don't know if we can save your life. We're going to try. I mean, it was really dramatic. I'm not making it overly dramatic. It was dramatic. My then girlfriend called my parents in Pennsylvania. They could only get one ticket available. So my dad flew out. They were about to put me under, and, I come from a family of doctors. So I said, listen, whatever you do, if you can do it, don't cut my abdominal muscles. I said, resect them, because I knew if they cut my abdominal muscles, I was out of the film. I knew if they resected them, I had a chance.
Oh, okay.
So again, long story short, they resected them. I was called by the studio, no flowers, no get better, be back on set in 10 days or you lose the part. I had myself discharged against medical orders from the hospital, and they said, okay, we're going to have a stuntman do all your karate. We'll use you for the close-ups, which was a horrendous idea because, I was better. And, again, long story short, I wound up doing all my own stunts in the film, with the exception of one stunt that's a non-martial arts stunt where I'm in a car and we drive across the train tracks and a train comes speeding by. I was like, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
So.
So how much of the movie was filmed before this happened? Was there a lot of it done already?
There was only a couple weeks. I mean, they had just enough of me on film that they were willing to roll the dice. But, I went back to work and had staples all up and down my stomach. I mean, there's no way that I should have been working, but I was not going to lose this role.
Yeah. Wow. That's so intense.
Yep.
That's like something out of like a storyline from getting out of the hospital against. It's good that you come from a family of doctors that you knew that, because anyone else, they might have just did that other. Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, it was indeed crazy.
Is there anyone? So when the movie's all done and you see it on screen, you have the premiere. Like, how surreal was that? Like, because I don't know if you had a premiere for like Hide and Go Shriek.
Yeah, no, I didn't. But they had a premiere in my hometown, and
oh, sweet.
My karate teacher was there. Was just beaming. He had come out to set in California. He came to see me at the Mr. Miyagi's house set. I mean, it was a big deal. And, you know, it was kind of hometown hero stuff and really felt good. And I had all my friends there. And I mean, of course, seeing yourself up on the big screen, which I hadn't done that many times. You know, I think this was like my second or third film. I think it was my second. Anyway, you know, I mean, and to see, this is, now keep in mind, this isn't Hide and Go Shriek. This is a, you know, multi-million-dollar professional film shot properly with helicopter shots and, you know, known actors. I mean, and so you look a lot better is my point. And I was like, wow, I mean, that's pretty damn cool. And, you know, having seen the first two films with the, you know, with the Cobra Kai guys, and there suddenly I am in the Cobra Kai, you know, outfit and everything, I was like, this is really kind of cool. I was really, you know, it was a special moment. You
know what? Especially now that I know that you have a karate background, it's got to be even more special. Like, say if you were in a movie, like a football movie, obviously if you were in a movie with big actors,
right?
Deal.
Right.
This is something that you like, you know, not a lot of people would say they train for something their whole lives, but in a way you did.
Yeah, I did. And I was studying Japanese karate. You know, I wasn't studying Taekwondo. I wasn't studying, you know, judo. And, you know, my teacher's teacher was Mr. Miyagi's stunt double. I mean, he really is. They even made a documentary about Sensei Demmer called The Real Miyagi.
Oh, sweet.
He really is Mr. Miyagi. So it was just, you know, it was a bigger than life, bigger than me sort of thing.
And you seem like a real tough guy. So I don't know, in the screen test, obviously you must have scared him enough for you to be next on the list when they fired the other guy. But he plays such a good, like wimpy kind of guy.
Well, I mean, you know, listen, I mean, I would have been in high school if I had a bunch of crazed maniacs like the Cobra Kai guys.
Oh, I know.
After me. I know. Had a whole school of black belts wanted to kick my ass every day. So, you know, I don't fault Ralph, but you know, he did a terrific job in those.
Oh, no,
I mean, that's a piece of cinematic history. It really is.
Oh yeah, no, and especially in the third one, you have like adults trying to beat him up too, like the.
Yeah, now there's adults.
I know. You have Martin Cove's like war buddy come in there trying to kick his ass in the backyard right after you were trying to. And you know, one of my favorite parts of the whole movie is that final fight scene. Just like the first movie, you know, you have him down. In the first movie, it's more of that, not Zapka, but the other buddy, like the shorter guy that keeps saying, put him in a body bag. Your guy.
Oh, that we have.
Dude, yours is even better because you keep telling him his karate shit, his teacher's shit.
No, that was me. That was me who said that.
That's what I mean. No, that's what I mean. So you were doing that. I'm sure it was in a studio because I'm sure it didn't pick it up that good. Like,
that was all improv. They just said go nuts on him, and so that's what came out.
That's so great.
And you know, I don't know if until that moment they were really 1,000% convinced that I was going to pull it off. And at that moment, the producers were just ecstatic. They were like, "You did it! You really did it!" Like, I told you I'd do it.
Yeah. No, that was just so intense. And the eyes, the way you turned it on, you know, you kind of look like, and I looked at your IMDb and you were on the show later, but like in that movie with your haircut, you look like.
Are you going to say Sasha Mitchell?
Is that the guy from Step by Step?
Yeah.
So you got that. Okay. No, because you look just like him in that part.
Yeah, he and I used to get mixed up all the time. The only thing is he's a lot bigger than I am. He's like 6'3". He's a big dude, 6'2". But he and I are actually friendly. I've known Sash for a long time. Yeah,
that's awesome.
He's the guy from Kickboxer.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So then down the road, you're in a bunch of other shows over the years. Outsiders, the TV show. It's pretty cool. You're on a couple of Perry Mason.
Yeah, I actually did the very last Perry Mason Raymond Burr did, which was, you know, a big honor to work with him. Yeah.
And then you're on Walker, Texas Ranger with Chuck Norris.
Yeah.
Which must have been pretty cool, especially with your karate background. And
that was amazing. I'll never forget my dad one time when I was a kid got me a signed autograph from Chuck Norris, a photo that said, "Sean, keep on kicking." And when I wound up getting off the plane in Texas and going to the set, and Chuck came up and gave me the biggest smile and put his, gave me like just a friendly handshake and said, "Wow, Sean, it's so great to have you here." I was like, "Are you kidding me?" I said, "Are you kidding me?" And I'm doing a fight scene with Chuck Norris. I said, "Come on." I mean, that was forget it.
I interviewed one of Chuck Norris's buddies from years before that. This guy, Richard Norton. They were good buddies, and he convinced Richard to come over to the States and do some fighting in some of the movies. And he was in a few of those, but he said Chuck Norris, like the nicest guy ever.
Nicest guy ever, man. He's just so cool.
So at this point on your IMDb, it's like 98, and then you transition. How did it start that you were in soap operas?
Well, actually, it wasn't 98. It was 92 when I started doing General Hospital.
Oh, really? Okay.
It was weird. I mean, to be really honest, I got Karate Kid, and I mean, that role involved, it was a lot of force of personality and charisma, but not a lot of, tremendous acting ability in retrospect. And, I auditioned and I wasn't getting, I was getting jobs, but I mean, I needed to do some more work on my acting. I really needed to mature as an actor. And so I decided I was going to do a play. And so I did a play, which was kind of a critical success in Los Angeles, called Irish Coffee, where I played a real low rent English anarchist type guy. And I got some good notice from it. And Steve Burton, who has been a friend of mine for a very long time, was playing Jason Quartermain on General Hospital. And he said, "Look, they're getting rid of the guy that's playing AJ Quartermain right now, and they need a new one. And you and I look so much alike. Steve really worked hard to kind of set up a screen test for me. And I was the only guy screen testing. And I was like, wow, if I don't get this, I really suck." And so I got it. And, once you do a soap opera, because they've got, a built-in audience that's been an audience for so many years, you get known. It really, Karate Kid certainly put me on the map because there were all the Karate Kid fans. Now I had the benefit of being, after a little while, really well known with all of the soap opera fans. So I had like kind of these two different groups of people that were, that knew who I was as an actor. And that gave me a little more, I guess, cachet walking into the door of auditions, and, things started to happen a little more quickly.
Yeah, you're in a lot of episodes of those shows. And they always have, people in soap operas always have pretty cool names. And you definitely had some cool, Deacon Sharp. AJ Quartermain is a pretty cool name.
AJ Quartermain, and then I was Special Agent Jude Kavanaugh on Sunset Beach.
Yeah, I don't know if you ever, I'm sure you might have had some scenes with her, but I interviewed Leslie Ann Down's husband over the weekend.
Leslie Ann Down was my love interest on General Hospital.
Oh, that's so
I know
awesome.
her. Don, I adore Leslie.
Love that's her. So cool. Yeah, I talked to Don on Sunday, and he was such a cool guy.
I love both those guys. They're great.
Oh, that's so cool. Look at that small world.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So how is it really demanding? Because you got to think how many episodes come out in 1 year for a soap opera. Is it like a day in, day out process?
Well, they film 5 days a week. Generally, you do a show, and the show does a show and a half a day. If you're real busy, you'll work 3 shows, 4 shows a week. I mean, if you're in a really hot storyline, you might work 5 to 7. But it's hard and it's intense, but it's also a little more of like a 9 to, I don't want to say 9 to 5, but more like sometimes like a 9 to 7 type job. But you're not on location. You're not filming weekends. You've got a month off in the summer, a month off during Christmas. I mean, it's very hard and very intense when you're working, but then you get, time off. We never worked on Mondays. We always had Monday off. So all things considered, it was a fantastic job.
That's awesome. So you mentioned it before when you ran into that guy from the guy to be named later, the Hide and Go Shriek. So when did you get into writing?
Writing is something I've always really liked doing. I had been working on this idea for a screenplay for quite a while, and eventually put the financing together for it. And we made this film called Chasing Holden, which is about this kid that runs away from boarding school to go find J.D. Salinger. And, to this day I write. I mean, I got my second book out now, and A lot of times when I'm in a film or something like that, I'm rewriting scenes and working on them. So it's just something that, that it's something I enjoy doing, but it's something that's become a valuable tool and sometimes necessity in some of the projects I've worked on.
And what's the book that you have coming out right now?
Yeah, it's out right now. It's called Success Factor X.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, my writing partner, Jill Lieberman, and I put this book together, and we went out to 50 people in all different, and we said, what's your best advice about success, or what does success mean to you? And we've got an amazing array of people ranging from Mark Cuban and Anthony Robbins to Daryl McDaniels, the founding member of Run DMC, and baseball players, football players. Yeah. So it's a beautiful coffee table book. It's on Amazon. You can get it in certain Barnes and Nobles, and it's an inspirational success-based book.
I like it. I'll put the link into the episode notes, but I'm definitely going to check it out.
Oh, that'd be great. Thank you.
No problem. Jason Alexander, Don King. Huh. How was it like talking to Don King?
Well, here's the interesting thing. This entire book was done through email correspondence. I didn't actually interview anybody. Yeah. So the whole thing was put together, emails, and it got pulled together somehow. But no, I didn't actually interview any of these people.
That's cool that they responded and wanted to be involved. Those some big names.
Yeah, indeed.
And then one last thing that you mentioned earlier. So you're talking about your love for stand-up when you were growing up. So I know are you still doing stand-up right now?
I do stand-up from time to time when my schedule allows. I don't have any gigs scheduled right now, but I'm sure I'll do some more sometime over the next year. I mean, I just finished back-to-back films, and I'm about to start a project at the end of this month. So it really is a function of my schedule. So, when I have time, I like to do it. It's just great, interacting with a live audience, having that instant reciprocity, but it's not something I always have the time to do.
Yeah. What are some people, if somebody went to go see you, or who would you say that you are inspired by?
Who am I inspired by?
Yeah. Like what kind of stand-up do you do? Like, is there any comedian that you not channel, because you're not going to do the same thing as someone else, but
I like to think I'm really singular. I'm myself. I do a lot of material about what it's like being a father in a blended family of 5 kids. And,
oh, cool.
A lot of material about being in a soap opera and Karate Kid and that sort of stuff. And
oh, sweet.
Very specific to my life, so no one else can do it. It keeps me from getting my material stolen.
That is good. Nobody's going to go on stage and say, yeah, so then I was scaring Ralph Macchio on set. And then,
exactly.
Oh, dude, that's stolen. Carlos Mencia, you can't do that.
Exactly.
Yeah. So what are some of the movies that you have coming out?
So I just finished a film with Steven Seagal and DMX called Beyond the Law. And I have a supporting role in that. I don't have a huge role in that, but I do have one very funny scene in it. And then I just finished a sci-fi film called Colonials, which is really cool. It's kind of like a Buckaroo Banzai, Star Wars, obviously not the budget, but it's a sci-fi intergalactic space story. And I've got a really cool part in that. So just finished those 2. And, like I said, I'm going to go promote the book, and then I got a TV project I'm starting soon. And then I don't know what I'm doing.
Well, that's good that you have a lot going on. How was it working with Seagal? Did you have scenes with him?
I actually didn't have scenes with him. The production flew to, I think, Bucharest in Hungary. Bucharest? No, wait, not Bucharest. Wait, it was in Romania. That's where they went. I forget where it was. Anyway, they had to fly to Romania to shoot him. So I did not have any scenes with him, and I didn't have any scenes with DMX either. My scenes were with the other lead, whose name is Johnny Messner.
Okay. Have you talked to Don at all? Because Don had some experiences with working with Steven Seagal.
Yeah, I've spoken to Don about it.
Okay. He had some really funny stories about him that were pretty mind-blowing. Like when they were in Japan one time, and Seagal got out of the car, and he said within minutes, it seemed like minutes, like 5,000 Japanese people were around him taking photos.
I mean, he's a major international star. I mean, he still makes a lot of movies, and he's known worldwide.
Yeah, no, he had 5 huge monster movies in the States, And then no matter what he makes now, it just is huge wherever.
I think they're doing. I think they either did or are doing Above the Law too.
I did see that. Yeah.
So I'm kind of curious to see that.
No, I'll definitely want to check that out. No, I love Steven Seagal. I mentioned before, I talked to William Sadler, who worked with him. I talked to Don, who worked with him. And then I also talked to Michael Grace, who wrote, he wrote one of the movies. But no, they all had pretty interesting stories about him. But yeah, the guys loved no matter where he's working.
Yeah, interesting guy.
Yeah, well, this has been great. I'm so happy that.
Hey, man, my pleasure. Listen, it was a real pleasure talking to you, Doug. Thank you so much for thinking of me. Oh, no problem, dude. You're awesome. I watched this movie a bunch growing up, and it's so cool. It's like I have like things that I watch you in. My mom has things that she watches you in the soap operas. So no, it was really cool to be able to chat with you. Well, buddy, I hope we get the chance to meet each other in person sometime.
Totally, man. If you're ever in Jersey or the tri-state area, I'll definitely. Sure, you're here for something maybe sometime. But if I'm ever out there, I'll reach out to you. Okay, brother. You take care of yourself. Thanks again. So there you have it. Sean was so awesome for taking the time. Follow him on Instagram at Sean.Kanan. That's SEAN.KANAN. I'll put the link to it in the notes as well. He's very inspirational and super humble. Thanks again, Sean. So now your job is to go watch or rewatch Karate Kid Part 3. Then listen to us discuss it next week. It's got a lot of people trying to kick Ralph Macchio's ass in this one, even an adult. So you got to subscribe so you don't miss out. Review, rate, tell your friends about us. Oh yeah, follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and suggest some movies.